Hey everybody, today I'm going to be going over a very common question I get asked when helping a organization seek an assessment, get ready for CMMC, and that question is, do I need GCC High to pass CMMC? Or what is the difference between GCC and GCC High? Because as you may know, GCC High is about 50% more expensive than commercial, and GCC High is more expensive than commercial, but it is not anywhere near the costs of GCC High. If somebody told you that you have to use GCC High to pass CMMC, I need you to think really well and hard before you actually pull the trigger, because they might be wrong. The answer is it depends on the type of CUI that you are handling. Now, before we start, I want to talk about what FedRAMP is. Now, the requirement from DFAR 7012 is asking you to use a cloud service provider that is FedRAMP moderate or equivalent if it is going to be storing, processing, or transmitting CUI. Now, what does that mean? FedRAMP is basically, so think of CMMC for defense contractors. FedRAMP is almost the same thing, but for big cloud service providers where a government agency wants to use that cloud service provider, and the government agency wants to ensure that it's secure, basically. So let's break down the differences between commercial and GCC and GCC High, because you may not need GCC High. Now, commercial is obviously just a normal cloud provider. All right, so what does that mean? It's probably global. Probably the backend staff are maybe worldwide, right? Not US based. It might not be US based. You might have staff from India, staff from China, staff from the UK, staff from wherever administering the backend servers of the Microsoft commercial platform. So it's probably secure because it's a cloud service provider. That is a huge attack surface. They want to be secure. They want to make sure they're secure simply for cybersecurity's sake. There's no compliance condemning them to do this. Now, GCC is FedRAMP. FedRAMP moderate, to be exact. What does that mean? FedRAMP moderate simply means that a government agency wanted to use it, and they wanted to ensure that it's safe to use, to put their information in there. So the way it works is a cloud service provider is going to go through a third-party assessment, just like a defense contractor is trying to get a CMMC assessment. A cloud service provider is going through a third-party assessment through a 3PAO to prove that they're performing all of the security controls from NIST 853. Okay? NIST 853 is actually NIST 800-171 comes from NIST 853, if you didn't know. It's just a smaller, more easier version of it, I guess, is a better way to put it. And NIST 853 has 300 controls, 300 plus controls. And all of them require to be assessed. Okay, assessor's going to come on and basically check to make sure all 300 plus controls are going on. And that's FedRAMP. Okay, now there is 3 tiers of FedRAMP. There's FedRAMP low, FedRAMP moderate, and FedRAMP high. We're going to focus on FedRAMP moderate because GCC is FedRAMP moderate, and DFAR 7012 requires you to have a minimum of FedRAMP moderate or equivalency. So most clouds that people actually care about are going to be within that FedRAMP moderate because it's required by the regulation DFAR 7012. Commercial took everything. Microsoft took basically the functionality of this and plopped it over here. Basically, that's what happened, except that this version got assessed for FedRAMP moderate or equivalency, and they ended up getting FedRAMP moderate. Okay, that's all that happened. It might be the exact same code running on the back end, same exact functionality, same stuff going on, but these guys decided to do all the NIST 853 paperwork that comes alongside with getting FedRAMP moderate. So that's all it does. And then on top of that, DFAR 7012 requires some reporting requirements. Commercial does not attest to doing that. GCC does. So you're going to probably need GCC if you're handling CUI at minimum. But again, this depends on what type of CUI your organization is handling or plans to handle. Now, what is the problem with GCC? And why would you want to be on GCC High? I'm going to go into that right now. The reason you would want to go into GCC High is not because it's FedRAMP moderate, but because the biggest difference is that everything is US based. They got all their servers, all their data centers in the United States. All the staff are US people. All right? They're US persons. Now, you can probably tell where I'm starting to go with this. This is required if you have export controlled information. If you got ITAR, EAR controlled information, or CUI that is export controlled, you're going to want to be on GCC High. Because obviously, if you're uploading bomber airplane diagrams in GCC, you might have a foreign admin seeing that, right? So in that situation, you're going to want to store all your stuff in GCC High, not in GCC, not in commercial. So to answer your question, do you need GCC High for CMMC, or you just want to know the difference between GCC High and GCC and what you should choose if you're an organization, the answer is it depends on the type of information you are handling. If you've got CUI that is export controlled, is controlled under ITAR, EAR, anything like that, you probably want to do GCC High, most likely. If you got information that is CUI but it's not export controlled, you can go on GCC. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.